if you're tuning into like week two before week one, I highly recommend you go back and watch week one before you watch this episode.
So, hey, everybody, welcome back to the Fitz and Franson show. We are jumping right into week two of building your business. So, Matt and I have got a 6 week program going on, and we're just giving you guys kind of an introduction to each of the weeks. And if you guys choose to partner with us on this program, we'll obviously go into a lot more depth with it. So, Matt's here with me today. And if you guys tuned into last week, we kind of started with knowing your numbers. So, Matt, how about we jump in, do a quick recap of last week, and show people what week two would look like?
Yeah, sounds good. I think excited to be continuing down the journey with everybody, and I think getting a good recap of where we were last week and what we were able to build on, and is the right idea here. So I'll let you kind of take it away. I think you're probably better suited to give the recap and have a better memory than I do at this point with the sleep deprivation that my 7-year-old's put me through still.
Yeah, yeah. Middle of the week here. I'll do my best as well. So last week we really did talk about creating a scorecard and knowing your numbers. And as you guys can see on the screen, there's a couple of different things there that we talked about last week as far as knowing your marketing numbers, your sales numbers, and your production numbers. So we won't spend too much time on here, but hopefully you guys took some time in the last week and looked over your own numbers. So yeah, we talked about the differences between drifting towards goals versus running towards them, and hopefully last week helped you guys get on the right path. So we won't take up much more time here, but let's jump into week two.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add here, Jay, is if you're tuning into like week two before week one, I highly recommend you go back and watch week one before you watch this episode. And the reason being is I think we started off that episode by talking about how important it is to understand your foundation, understand these numbers, know what they are within a very small margin of error. Without knowing that, you can't really make educated decisions on what it is you're going to do in order to gain that growth, or gain those steps that you need to make to where you want to go going into next year as well too. So like I said, if you're watching this before you watch the last one, hit pause, come back to this, and start there, because knowing those numbers is critical. So but once you know this and you have your foundation built, we start by asking kind of some simple questions here, right? And we're going to look at starting with the end in mind. So, Jay, in a previous episode, we had a little bit of fun doing some role play, and you were a sales rep or an aspiring athlete, so to speak, right? And I was either your coach or your manager in those two role plays, and so maybe kind of in a very small version of that, we can dive back into a little bit of role play as if I were helping to coach you through this program like we are doing with some of our clients right now. We're asking a very specific question when we get to this point in our process in the 6 week program with those that are in it. And we ask a question of, what is it that you want to make next year? So what are the typical answers that we're getting, or what would be the answer that you would give if we're in that role play?
Yeah, I think that generally speaking, a lot of people just pick a big number. I want to hit 5 million next year.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear that all the time, right? And 5 million sounds like a great number. We talked a little bit about that last week on the episode then, and I think one of the things that both you and I have commented on is we've been to some of the different shows and meetings and had a great opportunity to learn from a lot of really smart people that are out there. But one of the things you walk away from in some of those meetings is that the idea that there are countless companies that walk around with their chest puffed out, talking about how much revenue that they generated the year before, right? 5 million,
Yep.
10 million, 15, 20, 60, $100 million.
Yep.
But it's incredible how often you turn around a year, 2 years, 3 years later, and those companies aren't around anymore.
Yeah.
And the big reason is they're not talking about what they kept. They're talking about what they wrote. We had a really big, situation that happened in our industry not too long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, where this is a company that's on what I think top five or so on the top 500 list and writing hundreds of millions of dollars of business every single year, but clearly not keeping enough of it to keep the lights on. So it's not what you write, it's what you keep, right? So 5 million would be great, Jay. And this is the
Yep.
conversation we have with our dealers, right? But what's the next question you ask when you get that answer?
Yeah, and just kind of to recap with like accounting terms, people think that gross revenue is the goal,
Mm-hmm.
and gross revenue is a number that's interesting, but net or profit is what you want to focus on. So, how much do I want to keep? That's a great question, and I like that it shifts the conversation from just that big idea of I want 5 crews and I want a $5 million company. Okay, cool. How much do you want to keep of that? And I think a healthy number for most home improvement in companies is between 10 and 20% should be that net revenue after all the bills are paid and everybody gets their checks. So
Yeah.
that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable target to set for yourself, and it's achievable in this industry,
Yep.
right? And that's the beautiful thing about it. I think one of the things that I hear when companies tell us, I want to get to 5 or 10 or $15 million, and they don't have this concept of, that's great, but what do you want to keep, and how do you get there, and understanding their numbers. All I hear when I hear 5, 10, 15, whatever that number is, that they're throwing out that big audacious number, is all you want is significantly bigger headaches because you're
Hmm.
going to have a lot more people and a lot less money in the bank at the end of each month. And that's a problem
Yeah.
because keeping the lights on is going to be a big challenge. And you're going to have a lot of people banging down your doors waiting for paychecks each month as well, too. So
Hmm.
um, that bottom line is really what matters. And I think there are a lot of people who are doing $1 million, $2 million a year with 20% net profit who are a lot happier than those that are doing 5 or 10 or $15 million with,
Yep.
2, 3% profit, right?
Yep. Yeah,
So
and we're recording this here in November 2025. And we've really been pushing people to take seriously what 2026 looks like. And so that second question up there says, how much do you plan to grow? Great question to be thinking about way ahead of time. So there's a little text underneath that number too, but what's a good growth plan? What's achievable, do you think?
I think for for all of us out there, that answer is really variable depending on a couple of things. Okay. Depends on where you are in your journey, right? Obviously if you're at, you know, 50, $60 million in a, mid-sized market, your growth percentage might be smaller, might be, getting close to maxed out with what you're doing currently. If you're in a large market and you're just getting started, your growth potential is significant, right? So I think what's really important here is being honest with yourself, right? So in two areas. One, be honest with what is available, right? And then also what is not going to stretch you beyond, what you're capable of doing and handling in a year. Also, more importantly, what your people are capable of doing and handling in a year. Too much growth can stress people out, and it can burn out your system and it can burn out your people. So I really think that that's important, right? You could have the ability to grow 30 or 40 or 50% because the market's available for you. That doesn't mean that you should this year. That
Yep.
could be unhealthy for you and your people. So setting a good ceiling to your growth is probably a thing that you need to keep an eye on as well too. So one of the things I will say though is no matter what you're doing and no matter where you are on that journey, 10% is probably a minimum growth that you should expect every single year, give or take a point or two. When you take into account the fact that the manufacturers you purchase from are going to likely push a price increase to you that's going to account for a certain, number of those points being kind of pushed upon you. You're
Mhm.
going to have a couple of people on your staff that are doing really, really well that are going to require a little bit of a pay bump. And that's going to require you to raise your price a little bit as well, too. So you're going to get a natural increase in overall revenue, boost because prices have to go up year over year. Go buy a carton of eggs today, and it's not what it cost last year because all of the things that took that to get that carton of eggs there cost more this year than it did last year, and it'll cost more next year than it did this year as well too. So 10% at a minimum probably should be what you should be setting your standards at. And if your people aren't, on board for that, we need to have a conversation about, hey, what's your motivation and is this the right thing for you to be doing? So 10% at a minimum would be my standard.
Good. Sounds easy enough. Looks like we're ready to go.
Yep,
All
all
we
done.
do
We
is
can
sit
wrap
back
up.
and we just collect the money now at this point, right?
That's it, man. That's it. I wish it were that easy, right?
Yeah.
Um, at this point, if this is where you stop, you're right back to being that guy on the raft like we talked about last week.
Yeah.
And this is what separates, I think, great companies from mediocre, average to maybe subpar companies.
Mm-hmm.
You set a really good target, a really good finish line, but now we need to really think about and break down, reverse engineer, how are we going to get there? Okay,
Yeah.
so, you look at those things, you say, okay, we started with the profit goal in mind, right? Jay, I know you're pretty systematic about a lot of the things you do. So, talk to us about kind of the things that we have here on the screen and working our way, backward, so to speak, and what's important about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, knowing the profit goal, we in the previous slide I said, okay, so 4.5 million, and then just do the math. And so when we recognize that we want, pick your 10 or 15 or 20% profit, and you want to grow by X amount, you start putting numbers down, and you should be recording this. And it starts with writing it down. Put it somewhere so you can look at it.
Yeah. I would even encourage you too. You got to put it some down, not just where you can look at it, but where your team can look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have talked about it. I think you mentioned it on the last, episode of this series. This program isn't just for the, large company that's got, directors and managers and team leads. It can also be for, the owner operator who's running marketing and maybe has a sales manager or is running the sales team but has a marketing manager. But if you have people that are responsible for helping you drive these parts of your business, they need to be well aware of what this roadmap and plan looks like as well too. So, you know, but if it's not written down, it's easily forgotten and it's easily pushed aside because life gets in the way. The customer calls, the issue happens on the install, you name it, right? We all have the phone that never stops ringing. And before you know it, you're right back to just putting out fires and you're right back to not growing and you're right back to not making the profit that you were hoping to make this year. So you did a great job. You put the profit goal down that you wanted to make. You put down the growth goal that you wanted to make. Now we need to start, okay, identifying what are those areas that are going to help us grow a little bit more and create a little bit more room between, revenue and what hits that bottom line.
Yeah.
And we know that there are a couple of areas in our business that are, contributors to moving jobs, into the system and all the way through it. And then also that, need to be done so efficiently. So you have your overhead, your back office, you have your production, you have your sales, and you have your marketing department. So those are going to be your or your four kind of areas that you need to start planning and accounting for. What percentages are they going to account for? And what's going to go into them? What budgets are you going to give them? And how is it going to break down month over month, like you see here for the entire year? And what that ultimately leads into is what we refer to as your 2026, 2027, whatever year it is that you're planning for, your roadmap, your guide, right?
Yeah.
And I know what we talk about all the time is that most businesses, this is where they fail. They got a great idea, they got a great, goal in mind, but they they don't plan, so they really are planning to fail.
Yeah. And how do you do something like this when you don't know the future?
Hmm. You know, it, That's a great question. And I know I seem a little stumped on the answer here. I was asked this question I think it was yesterday or the day before on one of the coaching calls that I was on with one of our customers, Jay. And, the reality of our business is that the more things change, the more they end up staying the same. And there are variables that happen, right? The biggest of which we went through a couple of years ago with COVID, which was a positive variable for our business. Might be morbid to say that, but it had a positive impact on all of us, right? Um, there are going to be some downturns, there are going to be some upturns. So you have to plan for um, potential hurdles, speed bumps, so to speak, right? And you have to plan for, okay, if there are going to be moments of, uh, positivity, well, where am I going to be able to push the chips into the middle and capture more of what's out there to capture? Um, but at the end of the day, that pendulum that swings back and forth, it's going to, have an average that's going to be, there for us to gather most of the time. So I have to plan for what happens most of the time, and maybe, have a backup plan surrounded for the other two options at the other end of the pendulums as well too. So by having a good plan set in place for what happens most of the time, I can be prepared for what could happen as well too.
Yeah,
Is that a fair answer to your question?
that is. That's good. And I'm getting, on this slide, I'm getting serious spreadsheet vibes. I feel like this stuff should be written down somewhere. If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, you might have kind of a freebie for the listeners at the end of the show. But talk to me a little bit about the second one that says work backwards through overhead, production, sales, and marketing. How do I do that?
Yeah. So, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go here to the next slide, Jay. And this doesn't have the actual, freebie, but we will have a link that'll be on the video for everybody. We have a basic spreadsheet that we utilize to help people kind of get set and um, work through these programs and understand how to put these numbers together, right? We call it a roadmap, and it's helpful to see these things laid out. Like I said, I think most people will look at this and go, "Cool, I take it and I look at this for an entire calendar year and I divide it by 12." What you and I both know, and you probably better than most on the marketing side of our business, is that the year isn't stagnant, right? It isn't 10 divided by 12, right? 10 million divided by 12, it's going to be 4% in January and 10% in March, or whatever it might be, based off of where you are in the country and the seasonality your business experiences. But having it mapped out like that allows for you to, push and pull the levers you need to when you have to. Okay. So yeah, that'll be there and available for anybody that wants it at the end of the show. Just look for the link and click it. It'll be able to be downloaded for anybody that needs that help. And if you got questions, reach out. We'll be happy to help you with that as well too. Um, but this is part of the process, right? You got to be able to put these things down, and this is where you start to be able to identify the areas that your leaders in these different departments that we talked about earlier are going to be responsible for watching, maintaining, and ultimately making successful. You're going to give them a budget. Here's a certain dollar amount that I need you to turn into a bigger dollar amount by the end of the year. And this is how you do it, right? And this is how you teach them to be successful in their business. So,
Yeah.
yeah, spreadsheets, unfortunately, are probably a bigger part of our world than most of us ever anticipated, right?
Yep.
And if you're not in them, you need to be for sure. So.
Yeah, and this is building on the first week where we start to understand the right things to track, and in this 2026 roadmap, that percentage of growth and that profit margin, a lot of that is going to be based on what happened in 2025. And
Yeah.
if you have those numbers, and I would even suggest those of you that get access to the spreadsheet, put in 2025 and just see what the actual numbers are and see what the percentages were month by month if you've never done that before, and go, oh wow, I really thought that I had, my marketing budget spread out evenly across the months, and then you realize that, maybe in July or or August, you spent way more than you thought you would, but it was a great month. Maybe it was a banner month, and you go, it's a great visual representation of there's certain times of the year where when you spend more, you actually get more. So spend more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. It's a good point, right? And I'll ask you a question, right? Because I know we're going through a time of year where traditionally in our business, it's a little bit slower, right? There's more things pulling at people's dollars. There's the holiday season coming up, and people are a little distracted, and having to buy some of those trips and gifts and those types of things. One of the things we hear is the struggle that marketing leaders and owners go through. Do I pull back? Do I stop? Do I do what's your advice in some of those conversations when you think about some of that stuff and you look at that? Like, is it something to be prepared for? Like, does this type of thing help, Jay? Looking at it like that, you just talked about going through and plugging it in. How much of that do you think matters in making this decision?
Oh, it matters a ton, and it lets you have the conversation on the marketing side. We have a lot of customers that we actually pivot some of the messaging. We and I talk to them about their sales team. How many do you have left? How many do you want to keep busy? Are you willing to have, maybe double the cost per lead or per appointment in the slow season to keep your good guys busy? And let's plan for that. Let's know that we're going to spend, maybe more than we want to, but the less than we do in the busy season, and we're going to keep those A players, and we're going to keep food on their families' tables. So it's a great place to start. Know your numbers, and the other thing that I talk to a lot of them about is in the slower season for home services, it's the busy season for retail.
Yeah.
And so just know what's going on. So join the retail with some great offers.
Yeah.
Come in and have some hard hitting benefits to purchasing during this season, even if it means maybe on the production side you make a little less, but keep them busy, keep your production guys busy. And so you can look across your numbers in that spreadsheet that you have built and have a good idea of how you can win 12 months out of the year, really.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, you know, I think when we look at the things that are here on the screen, and like we said, it may be hard to visualize this in a spreadsheet. Hopefully, anybody that's having a hard time doing that will click the link and pull that spreadsheet up. It's too hard to fit on a slide like we're seeing here, so we figured we'd make it available to everybody to go download there. But these are the things that are going to help you become a lot more educated and aware of the things that are going on in your market, like Jay's talking about, and how they impact some of the efficiencies that happen in these different departments for you, and how, to your point, Jay, how you maintain the the performance, and not only the performance but the healthy level of run rate for top performers and average performers on your sales staff and your production staff, your install teams, and those kinds of things as well too. So when you're building these things out, these are all of the areas. So when you go through this list, right, and you're looking at your, it's almost kind of in reverse order here looking at it, but looking at your marketing department, you're going to start with, okay, here's my overall number that we want to spend. So I know, if we were to walk through an example, Jay, and we look at it, let's just say in 2025, we had, I don't know, you and I running a business, we did 4.5 million in sales. Okay.
Yep.
And let's say that you and I are maybe going to go a little bit above like the minimum standard. We want to grow by 15% this year. That puts us roughly at what, that's like 5.1 and change. Is that fair to say?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So, if we know that we're going to have a, fully loaded, marketing budget of, let's say we're going to be aggressive in our growth and we're going to plan to spend quite a bit, 18%, it'd be a lot, it'd be high,
Yep.
right? And some some industries that would be, acceptable, some industries that would be crazy a lot,
Hmm.
but just using a number there. That means we're going to spend just shy of $1 million in marketing dollars.
Yep.
Right. That's a scary number when you think about it overall.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
How does a spreadsheet
930,000. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How does a spreadsheet help you as maybe an owner or a marketing, manager digest that a little bit better, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of takes, I think we talked about this last week as well. You can take some of the emotions out of it. You just make it an equation and you shift that conversation over to percentages at this high level and you go, well, 18% cost of marketing, I'm okay with that. Well, that's $1 million. No, it's 18%. And so then you have that number. And if you break it down month by month, like we've discussed on this spreadsheet, you need to spend, I mean, 60 to $100,000 a month, depending on the time of year, to hit that $930,000 marketing budget goal for growth. It really
Yep.
changes the conversation and it makes it easier. Some of my favorite conversations are dealers that call me and they're like, hey, the budget says this much, so just spend it.
Hmm.
I like those. They recognize this is the plan. I'm going to stick to the plan. We're going to spend what we have on our spreadsheet, and we're going to follow that money down through sales and through production.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't make it without spending it. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it is you have to put a little out to get a little back. And at the end of the day, you asked the question about like how do you plan for something that you can't really predict. It is a little bit of a gamble.
Yeah,
There is no doubt about that. And the difference though is when you do what we did last week and you understand kind of the foundation of your numbers and your current program and your current systems and how they work, and then you start to really track these things and look at what is happening in your market comparatively to what you do in your market and what you do month over month. That gamble becomes less of a blind roll of the dice and a lot more of an educated guess, right? And when you understand it from that perspective, your educated guesses feel a lot more comfortable, and you understand too that I can make adjustments a lot quicker and a lot easier that keep us all a lot more protected in the long run. So having these things laid out for an entire calendar year and tracking them on a regular basis also lessens that blow of you thinking about the idea of spending almost $1 million in marketing at the beginning of a year. I'm not doing that today. I'm not doing that in January. I'm doing that over the course of the next 12 months, right?
yeah, that's good. So we kind of have a plan for this marketing. We've got a budget. We're going to run multiple campaigns. That stuff kind of gets into the weeds. That's the marketing manager's job, but they're going to hopefully be able to anticipate a certain number of leads that they think they can generate.
Mhm.
And then they're going to project that down over to sales guys. So, hey, in the month of January, we think we're going to get 100 leads. All right, sales, what do you guys need to do?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a system that feeds itself if it's set up properly, right?
Yeah,
So, excuse me. So look, it, it only works if you have the right number of reps to go run those leads,
yeah,
right? And they're running them efficiently. So I get asked this on a regular basis. Well, head count of reps is something you're going to track. We don't just spend to fill up the calendar of who we have.
yeah,
And, a lot of times I'm left scratching my head going, well, you planned for growth. And last year you did, $2 million with, two reps. Were they, if they were maxed out, how do you plan to grow without the idea of adding more capacity, adding more
yep,
reps, right? So that needs to be part of your growth plan as well too, right? And you need to keep an eye on how many appointments can they run during a week and still be efficient, right? If they're available for, let's say, 12 to 15 appointments every single week, at a certain point, when they go from, let's say, 11 to 12 to 15, there's a drop off where they are no longer as efficient as they were maybe from, 12 to 15. So there's a healthy run rate for every rep that's on your team. So you're going to give me 100 leads in January. Well, what I know is that a healthy, percentage for me is probably somewhere in that like 75 to 80% range, right? But right now I only have 3 reps. Well, I can't all of a sudden wave a magic wand and bring somebody in and be prepared. So I know I might be a little behind the 8 ball, so to speak, in January, but I need to have a plan in place right now in December to be
Mm-hmm.
recruiting and hiring so that I can be training in December and have somebody maybe out and running their first couple of leads towards the end of January so that I can make up ground on that, capacity that I'm missing out on there. But they're going to be picking up some extra appointments and giving those other 3 reps that are maybe running a little ragged at the end of January a little bit of breathing room so that when we go into February, we're caught up a little bit because you're going to give
Yep.
me probably a few more leads in January or in February than you did in January, I'd assume.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've got like home show season and you've got spring promotions. And we've seen at Powerful Media, usually as early as mid January, lead volume starts picking up.
Yeah.
And usually by the end of February, it's in full swing. And my team is asking for sales availability on calendars.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, part of your plan needs to be hiring and recruiting. It's not just how much
Yep.
you're going to spend and when you're going to spend marketing dollars, right? It needs to be when you're going to be hiring and training sales reps because it doesn't happen overnight. It needs to be when you're going to be hiring and training production staff, installers, because once you get sales reps up and running, they're going to be selling more jobs. And the thing that's going to kill sales and then it's going to kill your marketing costs is inevitably when you end up with a longer and longer backlog and you have to tell customers that, hey, we'd really love to have your business, but it's going to take us 15 weeks, to get here to do your install. And
Yep.
all of a sudden, that project that they were really excited about is something that's a distant realization that they get to think about and not
Yeah.
actually touch and feel. So you got to think about those things.
Yep. Yeah. What else are we tracking on the sales side? It looks like we're going to need to have the right number of reps based on season and lead volume.
Mhm.
Looks like we've got some things like close rate and other things.
Yeah. So look, I mean, we need to make sure that, marketing is doing a great job of, getting the phone to ring, converting them into qualified appointments and getting the sales reps to the door. Are we maintaining an efficient close rate with them?
Mm.
And capacity goes along with that. So, I don't want to be 100% full with them because I'm seeing, you know, if I'm seeing close rates dip or change, I need to have training that can happen for those guys. I need to be able to pull people off the board, bring them in, do retrainings, put them on ride-alongs with guys that are doing really, really well. So I need to have a standard that I'm setting for close rate. I need to hold my sales team accountable to a minimum standard, right? For some, it might be 35%, for some, it might be 40%. It's going to be different depending on what type of product you're selling, right? What type of process you run for your in-home, sales appointments, and also where you are with, growing your team. You got a newer team that's learning. It might be a little bit lower this year. So you need to account for that. And you need to be prepared for the fact that we might be a little less efficient on the sales staff, but we're going to grow into it. So maybe it starts off slower in the beginning of the year, but we're going to get better as the year goes on. So we need
Yeah.
to think about those things as we go through it.
Yep.
We also need to think about average job size on here as well too. Remember, we're going to go through a price increase every single year. So last year, maybe we were at, 5,500. But you know what? We're going to get a price increase. We're going to get better at utilizing financing. So those two things right there should help drive our average ticket up. So we should see that go up,
Yep.
right? So we need to account for an average ticket that we're going to be selling and try to drive towards that average ticket. And then our volume too is something that we're going to put on the board here that we need to have a target that we're running down month after month. So we know, again, Jay, you use the phrase all the time. I love it. And I have definitely stolen it and made it my own. We need to know what winning looks like on every
Yep.
level and at every stop through this process.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so we got marketing dialed in, we got sales dialed in, we know our numbers, we know last year's data, we know how our sales guys are doing, we know our lead sources and marketing, and now we're talking about production. So we've got a couple of things. If you mentioned backlog, and I'm not sure we touched on this yet, but what is a healthy backlog for a concrete coatings company right now?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think this one in concrete coatings especially is very different depending on where you are, I think, throughout the country. I know we've had the chance to work with Justin up at Epic and Fargo, and they're in their winter season, and at a certain point, it gets a little bit too cold for installs residentially to happen up there. So their backlog, what's healthy for them is going to be a lot different than what it might be for let's say Zano down in Florida, for example, where they
Mm-hmm.
can continually do work all year round, despite maybe the rain that happens occasionally there in Florida. So it's going to be market specific for sure. Whatever it is, you need to make sure that you watch it and you maintain it. When we were here in the Richmond, Virginia market, our goal was always to maintain somewhere in that 5 to 6 week time frame, no matter what our product line was that we were looking at. If we could stay in that 5 to 6 week time frame, we knew we were going to have happy customers. We were going to have a healthy backlog that kept our install crews busy year round, so that even when we did hit a little bit of a slowdown season going into kind of the holiday season where maybe lead flow slowed down a little bit, close rate maybe goes up a little bit though, because the people that are seeing you are definitely more interested, but
Mm-hmm.
we might not have quite as many jobs coming through the system. That's okay because I can maintain, the jobs that we sold in October and November through December and January being installed. And then we can pick right back up, like you just talked about, as that thaw happens mid-January, where I'm throwing an extra couple of jobs on each single week that are being
Yep.
sold on top of what was sold before.
Yep.
So, that's, I think, dependent on where you are in the country and what's healthy for you. But it's important that you know what it is, and it's important that you watch it and maintain it. One of the things that we established for ourselves, and forgive me for maybe rambling a little bit here, but is a stat where we kept an eye on installed versus sold. So installed
Mm-hmm.
jobs versus sold jobs. And we looked at that as a percentage gap. And that was a way for us to make sure that we were healthy and always kind of keeping a good balance where we were never outpacing at an unhealthy rate sales versus production, or vice versa. Production was never closing the gap too quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
if we had a bad week on sales, production knew it and would, find an excuse to do a culture building day, or, hey, I'm going to take a crew off the road because we need to do a warehouse cleanup day. And that was a way to kind of slow down a job or two, right? If we had that opportunity, maybe the weather was bad or something along those lines. So maintaining something along those lines is a good idea, in my humble opinion, for helping also keep an eye on your backlog. But again, this is going to be dependent on where you are and what works best for you in your part of the country.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and some other things in here that people can be paying attention to is, it's one of the things on the list is number of weeks that you can install. What is your
Hmm.
season actually? And those are great numbers to go, well, you and I talked about the northern states. I've got customers that basically shut down in December.
Yeah.
It's tough to sell interior projects where they're at. And so it's tough to build that backlog. We've heard a lot of customers say, well, I'd rather not get my interior project done in the winter. I'll just wait till the spring. And
Hmm.
so sometimes you just need to acknowledge there are weeks out of the year that you probably can't be busy. We have parts of the country, Pacific Northwest, there's a rainy season where you
Yep.
lose weeks of install days because of moisture.
Yeah.
So it's good
Yeah.
to have a historical record of that when you're projecting how many days in that year can you actually put floors down.
Look, I get it, Jay, man. You and I talk about this on a regular basis. I'm a Southern boy, and
Mm.
you guys up in the Great White North up there, I think you guys are nuts for being up there in the frozen tundra, and I think this morning here it was a frigid 42 for me.
Mhm.
And I know you were probably laughing about me being bundled up walking my kid to the bus stop this morning, but that has a real effect on you guys up there with the install calendar. There's no doubt.
Yep. Yeah. Last box that we're going to talk about here as we kind of start to wind this episode down is kind of the operations and back end of the company. We got a couple of things to pay attention to. Overhead percentage. I know some people that's kind of set, and that's
Hmm.
just a repeatable, recurring monthly expense that we know what it is. It's management wages that don't change. It's rent. It's warehouse stuff like that.
Yeah, it should be a
What
pretty
else?
easy one to pencil. It should be a pretty easy one to pencil in each month, but still important to keep an eye on it. Make sure that the bills are coming in the right way each time. And
Mhm.
then, profit is going to be the one that, is what gets finalized all the way through the system.
Yeah.
The last one that's on that list, or I should say that middle one that's on the list there, is your finance percentage. So I know this is for our Pentech, customers is probably a newer one that they're tracking as of last year. I think some are doing a really, really great job of it. Some of them did a really great job of, taking to some of the trainings that we've done and finding ways to understand the math and build it into their systems. But this is something you have to watch and you have to maintain.
Hmm.
It is a real cost and it is a real engine of growth, right? In fact, I'm going to go to the next slide here, Jake, as we talk a little bit about that here, but it's a really powerful tool. If used the right way, it'll be a positive powerful tool. If used the wrong way, it could crush your bottom line, right? So you have to really pay attention to it. So having an idea of what your mix is going to look like, right? And how it's going to work for you, and when you're going to use certain plans and programs, how often, all of those things that go into it will give you an idea of what to account for in the total cost from a percentage standpoint that you need to bake into your program, into your plan. And that needs to be something that you bake into your roadmap, right? And if you do it the right way, that should help you wash out to that, like in our example that we're using now, into that 15% or more profit margin. And it should help you get to that, into that 15% growth that you're looking for, right?
Hmm.
And I think that if you do those things, it's a really easy thing to watch and maintain. It's a really easy thing to coach to, and it's a really great, tool to have in your back pocket. So it's just, you got to remember, it's not free. I've had
Yeah.
that conversation with too many dealers who go, well, I didn't know I had to pay for it. Before you jump headfirst into it, talk to somebody that's doing it already. Give us a call. There are things that you need to know about how to use it, look at it, and build it into your programs. And then it becomes a really, really powerful tool. And then it's something you have to track and maintain over the course of the year as well, too.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, in the Pentech network, and I'll just speak from my experience, is, a lot of dealers came in to this post COVID or during COVID where the government was handing out free money. And a lot of dealers didn't want to mess with the financing. They said, if they can't just write me a check, same day, they're not my customer. Yeah, and we've watched, the world has really changed a lot in the last couple of years with the rise of AI, with economic uncertainty, with all of the thing that's happening globally and within our own government. And now we're noticing that even in the home services, home improvement space, people are shifting much of their budgeting to monthly payments.
Hmm.
And so what used to be well, if they don't have 5 grand, 5,000 in their savings, I don't want to work with them. And now it's, I think most households right now in 2025 I don't think they have 10,000 in savings.
No,
And so
the
it's important to set people up to continue to improve their lives and do it within the way they run their budget, which right now my kids, I have like 10 subscriptions, Paramount Plus and HBO,
yeah.
and I canceled Disney Plus because I had a bunch of other ones. Which
Hmm.
one do my kids want? Disney Plus, right? So you have this
Sure.
list of subscriptions, and you can throw a floor in there as well, or finance your projects. And it's just a way that the country is run right now.
No, I mean it's a great point. I mean, almost everything that we have, in our day-to-day lives now has at least an option
Yeah,
to pay for it monthly. And most of the things people take advantage of the monthly option to pay for these things monthly. And you made the comment about I don't know that many people have 10,000 in their accounts right now. I think the last time I did a training, I pulled up the data, and the average person in their accounts in the United States right now actually has, I think it's less than $7,000,
yeah,
7,500, somewhere in there. And in their checking account, it's like $2,500.
yeah.
So look, right now, holiday season, people have a lot of distraction when it comes to how they're going to be spending their money.
Hmm.
And, you know, this is also something that they would like to buy. But as far as maybe the priority, whether or not it's getting, Disney Plus for your kids this Christmas or, your floor, this is an opportunity to get both, right? So you can be a hero to that homeowner that gave you a call to see what it would take to get it done. And instead of walking out, leaving them disappointed that it's not something they can do this year, you can show them a path of affordability. And at the
Yep.
same time, if you plan for it the right way, not take a huge hit on it yourself as well too. So it's a really powerful tool that helps people get what they need.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. So overall, Jay, man, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground over 2 weeks here. You know, do me a favor here because I feel like you land the plane a little bit better than I do at times. Give us a quick recap of what we covered today.
Hmm. Yeah. So we talked about building that roadmap. We talked about incorporating week one's numbers, track your numbers, and put that into a manageable spreadsheet that you can look at not only the month to month numbers, but the bigger stuff. So start with your profit goal first, and then reverse engineer that all the way back to monthly targets across your business, the different verticals with sales, marketing, production, and just the operations side of it.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I mean, highlighted, we also highlighted obviously right there at the end the impact that financing can have. And that's something we're going to dive into a lot more here in the coming weeks, specifically how to use it in your marketing campaigns, and then also how to train it and coach it and utilize it in your sales process as well too in the coming weeks. So um, next week in our episode 3 of this 6-part series here, Jay, man, you're up. I get to kind of
Mm-hmm.
sit back and watch you cook a little bit here because I know we're going to be deep diving into marketing and planning for your seasons, right? So
Yep.
big discussions next week on seasonality. I think something that's maybe a newer topic for a lot of our clients out there, and maybe some that listen as well here too.
Mm-hmm.
um, when and how to use the budget that new marketing managers are getting and owners are allocating, when and how to use the offers, right? So you've got some of these finance programs, maybe you're doing discounts and percentages and dollars off, when to use those in comparison to the seasons, and then how to track your plan and how to roll this out to your team as well too.
Yep.
Anything we're missing on that list there, Jay?
No, it's going to be the best episode of the whole 6 week program. Not to brag, but
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
inviting everybody that's hung with us through episode 2 to join us for the third episode, and it's really going to be timely here to kind of wrap your head around what 2026 can look like for you, and kind of set the agenda ahead of time for the marketing to keep those sales guys busy and happy.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, the whole mission here for companies to keep sales guys happy, right, Jay?
That's we live to serve. I didn't
That's
say
it,
that
bud.
with sarcasm.
No, I didn't feel any at all there.
Hmm.
That's true.
Hmm.
So no, it's look, I've said it a couple of times, but it's a system that it works really well if everybody's feeding the next person in line, and then it comes all the way back around. So
Yep.
um, first two have been a lot of fun. Hopefully, there's been some good nuggets and good takeaways for those that have tuned in. Don't forget that the roadmap spreadsheet will be available for download. Click the link, and if you got questions or need help with it, reach out. Email will be there for you to let us know that you need some help, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you and see how we can be of service. Jay, I'll do it this time, buddy. As always, if there is anything you do to ring the bell and like and subscribe and follow us on the platforms, YouTube and Apple Music and Spotify and anywhere else you listen to your podcast, we always appreciate that. Jay, always a pleasure, sir.
Absolutely. Until next week.
Till next week. Happy hunting.